Hello, Brad Schielke here at Conversations with Mormons. This is part 2 of Opening Eyes to Life. Last week we looked at the Apostle Paul's declaration that Jesus appeared to him as a light brighter than the noonday sun, which certainly got Paul's attention. Jesus then gave him his mission for life to open the eyes of everyone he witnessed to. What is opening eyes about? Jesus told Paul the goal in opening eyes is for a person to trust Christ so as to receive forgiveness of sins and a share in the life of Christ, in the moral goodness of Christ. This is what it means to become a Christian. Jesus also told Paul that the way to do this is by opening blind eyes so as to turn a person from darkness to light and from the power of Satan to the power of God. First, why does a person need to turn? All of us were born with an ego which bears the image of God, but not the reality of God. This is what it means to be human and a person. To be a person also means to experience life through moral goodness. God experiences life by being the source of all moral goodness. Since we bear God's image, we sense deeply the goodness of both His role and ours. His role is to be the source of all the moral goodness we need. Our role is to be satisfied receiving from Him all the goodness we need. We all need and crave moral goodness. The big question is, who will we trust to provide it? Will we honor our humanity and trust God to give us what we need? Or will we take a shortcut that violates our humanity and trust that we can find all the goodness we need within ourselves? To put it bluntly, will we trust God or try to be God? All of us were born obsessed with trying to be God, with trying to find goodness within ourselves. This means our blindness is confusion about the difference between our role and God's. This confusion concerns both how moral issues are set right and who is responsible to set them right. We aren't naive in our blindness because we pridefully suppress the goodness of right relationships written in our soul. That's what it means that all of us were born in the darkness. We all need to turn from our darkness, from the moral shortcuts of our self-righteousness, and turn to God's light, to the good moral expectations of right relationships God's way, to God's true righteousness. How do we turn from darkness to light? In short, we do it by embracing God's mind about sin. Christ is the door into God's mind about sin, and moral flawlessness is the key that unlocks that door. Here's an example. Last week, a 79-year-old Mormon woman came to Oasis Books and Conversation for a free copy of our magazine, How to Be Free from Bitterness. She was active in her religion and knew she was bitter. We sat and talked for 2 hours. I asked questions to help give her freedom to let go of suppressing the perfection of God written in her soul. Early on, she admitted to having self-condemning thoughts and having them because she didn't meet her own expectations. I smiled as I declared that she had a problem with her expectations. They were too low. She expressed curiosity as she thought they were too high. I invited her to apply her expectations to me. When did she want me to do evil to her friends? She boldly declared that I should never do evil to her friends or to anyone else. To get confirmation, I said, "It seems that your expectation for me is that I should never do evil and do good whenever I can." She confidently affirmed that. I smiled and declared that I had to pop her bubble. I didn't meet her expectation because I'd done evil. She smiled and said she had too. Did she have any friends who'd never done evil? No. Had she heard of anyone in history who'd never done evil? Only Jesus Christ. I responded, "When you told me I should never do evil, weren't you really telling me I should be like Jesus?" She agreed, but not with the surprise of much younger Mormons. I replied, "Let's be open about Jesus. Compared to Jesus Christ, how do you think I'm doing?" She smiled only a little as she said I wasn't doing so well. That indicated that her eyes weren't open yet. I added, "A quiet Mormon student told me, 'Sir, I don't want to be offensive, but compared to Jesus Christ, you're a total failure.'" Those words usually evoke a big smile of understanding, but not this time. The woman was working hard to maintain her blindness to the meaning of her own words. What was I to do? Should I give up? Should I close my heart to her? No, I kept my heart open and continued to point her to God's perfection in her heart. Next week, I'll tell more of her story and we'll explore the importance of opening wide our hearts to welcome others out of darkness and into God's light. Until then, why not join me in thanking God for giving you the key of moral flawlessness that opens the door into God's mind about sin? Welcome to the conversation.